Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What episode are we?
That's
229?
229. We're so close to 230.
Is there something about 2:30?
I don't know.
That's when it starts getting good.
I mean, this is the numerology season, right?
We've been kind of awash in a sea of unremarkable numbers. I guess 222 could have been.
Well,
I don't know
2
if there's any
represents
222 heads
the
out
Father
there.
and the Son, and 3 represents the Holy Trinity.
222 is a third of 666. So there's that.
Yeah, bottoms up and the devil laughs.
Yeah, I mean, look, that lady is actually pretty good at that pitch. I did once see that Jim Carrey movie 23, and it was even worse. It was like even cheaper and dumber than I expected. I thought it would at least be like comfortably middle brow, but it was just poorly made. But there's some solid numerology in that movie.
I remember that was a movie. I was like early in Jim Carrey's wave of like, I'm doing serious movies now.
Yeah.
And it was the one that people felt most free about saying, this is fucking stupid, dude. Stop it.
Yeah, I thought, because like, you know, Eternal Sunshine.
Isn't that the one where he has like
yeah.
the long hair and shit?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Like Eternal Sunshine was like, you know, I know some people it's not their style, but it's like pretty comfortably middle brow movie. But number 23 was like, it just really had the vibe of like student film project, like run through the like built-in filters
Or like-
on my movie,
Like
you
a
know?
like a Canadian quota film or something.
Yeah, shit, it probably was actually.
Yeah, actually true, yeah. Carrey is Canadian. So.
Yeah. So it's episode 230 of View from 202. After the final game of the season, the regular season, before playoffs,
The real season.
Fan
Yeah.
appreciation night.
day, I
Day.
guess, afternoon. But
Game?
reminding myself as much as I'm reminding the viewer that we do like year-end awards and all of that shebang, like when the playoffs are over, whenever that is. So we're not doing that today. Today we're just talking this game against Charlotte, and then I guess seeds and playoff paths in anticipation of our home game at noon against Cincinnati.
And we're set for Leagues Cup next year. We're seeded for Leagues Cup next year. So
Whoa, can't wait.
Gotta do a little snapshot of that.
Yeah, I that was actually the main way that I realized that we
That we were
finished-
Spurs.
We finished in a Europa League spot this year. Like we're fucking West Ham, which is crazy to me. Because
We're like Pardew's Newcastle.
right, exactly. Although that was the year Pardew's Newcastle's. That's the year where they finished.
That's what I mean. They finished like 5th or 6th.
But they would have made.
Oh
Champions
yeah,
League
was that
if
the year
not
where
for
there was
Chelsea.
Chelsea won it, and yeah.
Or was it Spurs that got
Spurs
pushed
got
out?
screwed the first time Chelsea won Champions League, but I think there was something going on with that Newcastle year where they
I
finished.
feel like
pretty high.
Newcastle maybe was supposed to finish in the 4th place spot, and they got pumped to the 5th place spot, and Spurs got bumped out of Europe entirely. I don't know. This is
We're
great.
really Martinez Everton.
This is
I think, the
great
point.
pattern to
Yeah, I was gonna
include.
say,
Yeah,
that's
right?
what Everton wants to be.
Roberto Martinez
This is
Everton.
like top tier patter to put at the front of a podcast because it's something that somebody can easily instantly look up while they're listening to the podcast. Just 2012 EPL season. Boom, there it is. You already know. I don't know yet. You already know, listener. So enjoy knowing more than me at the moment.
Yeah, I
Do you
mean,
know-
our main purpose is to seed just complete rabbit holes on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
and just
well,
yeah,
to
that's
distract
true.
people from
This
our
is I can
talking.
verify we're not like a laptop podcast. You know, we don't have like, yo, Vinny, pull it up. We don't got that guy.
This
you know?
is a rewatching the highlights on mute on YouTube on our phone podcast. Not just be like,
Yeah.
oh, this is the entire everything I know is foot mob on here. And an enormous Google Doc of copy pasted plain text information I've been curating for 8 months of my life. You know, and I've been told that everyone else in my household is feeding themselves. I'm not totally sure, but my document is complete for at least another week. And one more week it will become obsolete once more players have played.
I
and
can't
more
believe
records
you've
are-
become a U.S. men's national team fan.
Yeah, I know. One day, yeah, my spreadsheets. I've been training to do all these spreadsheets, all these work opportunities and education. It's just so I can maintain a spreadsheet on 12-year-olds playing in the La Masia Minnesota Academy. Anyway, enough of that. We beat Charlotte 2-0.
Charlottetown.
Charlottetown.
The big
We
CL
beat the
team.
crown.
Yeah. Does Charlotte have... Oh, I guess Charlotte's named after a different queen. We already figured this out.
It's the same crown.
What?
Is it the same crown?
No, we figured out, horrifyingly enough, it's named like after Scandinavian queen, like Charlotte of like Denmark. Sorry for the foul language, but it's not, because I was wondering if it was like some sort of relation to like Charleston, maybe it like was an offshoot, but nope, different person. Charlotte was a different queen of them.
Were you asking if Charlotte FC has come up with like a nickname or anything yet? Because I don't know that they have. They call themselves like all their podcasts and stuff call themselves like Mint City, whatever.
That's their
and
supporters
stuff
group.
like that. Yeah.
So,
but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if they have like a Pigeons or
Do they grow
whatever
mint
NYC
in Carolina?
called.
Mint City, and then they keep.
Or is it
I
just
think it's the
color?
coins.
I think it's because they make coins. Maybe I don't know.
yeah, and then
That's really lame.
they just all the crown. It's all the crown. This that.
I guess
That's what
Mint
they
City
do.
is marginally
But they don't have, like, a
cooler
name
than
like
Queen
that.
City.
Yeah.
There's
Leaf
also
pigeons.
there's like 4 different queen cities.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say leave it to an axe throwing city to pick a crown worse
Yeah,
than the
we're
English one.
we're going to be going, not to spoil the episode for people who didn't watch the Red Bulls game, but are listening to this podcast. But we're going to be playing 2 Queen cities in a row, aren't we?
Well,
We're going to be
yeah.
playing
Yeah.
Charlotte and now Cincy.
Love Queens.
According to
Worldsboro.
View-
We're the kings of Queens.
Yeah.
According to the PodTrack analytics, we have I think a listener in Portugal and Spain, so those people might not be aware.
Oh, that might be my own VPN. That
Oh.
I just play the episode on a different VPN every constantly.
You're
throughout the whole
really
week.
playing the analytics up for our advertisers, so you know our sports betting, Bet365 sponsor, really.
Oh, please. I have more integrity than that. I exclusively deal with dude wipes. But yeah, Charlotte, I mean, I guess, honestly, a nickname, it'd be kind of fun to be the Queens, although they don't seem like they have enough sense of humor to call their own players the Queens.
Absolutely do not. No.
Charlotte fans, if you're listening, call your players the Queens. They'd love it. Christian Fuchs seems like you'd love it. No, really. Okay, when Fuchs came on, having been, since I am a 30-year-old man out of shape playing rec soccer experience, that's my lived experience. I can confidently say Christian Fuchs, that makes me feel represented. He just really looks like just a finance guy playing at Chelsea Piers.
Yeah, I mean, local New York boy does good.
I know.
Charlotte's your second team now.
Yeah, I was like, wow, that's me.
Yeah.
Right there. But jokes aside, you really did look like visibly different than everyone else on the field. He looked like barely like he was fitting into his kit. But hey, I mean, he was able to fake it, I guess, long enough. But unfortunately for them, Charlotte were not able to, and we defeat them 2-0 on the day. They had nothing to play for. They were already eliminated.
They'd had a good run coming into the game, though. I mean, I guess that coach they fired was actually kind of an asshole, and like they were glad to see the backside of him, because apparently they've had a pretty good second half of the year and actually were in playoff contention until last week,
Yeah.
surprisingly.
Yeah,
But
my couple of friends came who, well, one lives in Charlotte, and I went to the Charlotte the first the away game in Charlotte. I was at that earlier this year, and then he came up to come to this game. And we were just talking about the team, and like I think he admits that like they're just pretty bad, but they managed to only draw like 2 games all season, which
so
was,
like they were either getting blown out or winning.
yes.
Like, yeah.
And if they ended up just drawing a few of those games, they would have been in the like playoff conversation. So they weren't like too far off, but I think they just had a lot of like rot from like the first coach who was like admitted from the start, like, we don't have enough players to succeed, and then just gets fired a few weeks
Yeah,
later.
you're not kidding. They only drew 3 games this year, as opposed to winning 13 and losing 18. I don't know if that's a record. I mean, I know that
that's like Nashville when they're their first year. They
really?
they've only had like 2 draws.
I know Chicago set the record for draws like 5 or 6 years ago with an insane amount, but I don't know what the record for none is. I mean, I guess the fact that the league technically had 0 draws
at
for
the
a while
beginning,
maybe
yeah.
screws it up. But since
They
then,
count like the shootouts.
yeah, I think they
probably,
did
right?
like a hockey scoring type of thing. But yeah, I mean, honestly, they looked on the whole
Pretty well drilled.
Not
Like,
terrible. Yeah, not the worst thing that's come through at RBA. That's
They tried to play, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
that's probably
but-
why they lost.
Well, I was
Like,
gonna say like
We didn't look.
no, I was gonna say like they. Well, I turned to Sam at one point. It's like this team looks pressable, so let's press them, and like that's kind of what happened. And that was the same thing that like you were saying happened last game, except they just scored, and then we
In
lost. our
Charlotte, it
momentum.
was the same thing. The boys went out there and they bossed them around. And, like they were pressing the entire field and they were dispossessing like a very sleepy defense. And I think Charlotte only ended up winning that first game because of that deflection goal at the end of the first half, which really
killed our
just like
momentum
killed the
and
momentum.
confidence.
Everyone got tired and the game just faded. But otherwise, we looked fantastic, and I think we took the same approach in the game this weekend. But I think there were still some like pretty big causes for concern because Cornell got tested a lot more than he like really should have in that game.
I remember my post game column for that was saying like, "Damn, Cornell's even better than we thought." Like,
Yeah.
He really, had to be way more active than he's had to recently.
yeah, yeah. Do it again in this game.
Yeah, exactly.
But I do wonder if that's like like if we are trying to generate chances, that's kind of going to be maybe a little bit of the outcome to put him into positions where he's going to be making a little bit more of those saves. But like we were kind of pouncing on those balls in the midfield because Charlotte were playing them lazily, and that's like I felt more dangerous than we'd ever been in this game, even if we were vulnerable.
I guess. I think we're also. This is probably still. I don't know if I agree. I guess. Like I think we looked a little bit more fluid in attack, but I don't think that was necessarily related to how creaky we looked. I mean, also, I'll fully put my hands up on this and say that I've been pushing for Andres Reyes to get more minutes and being like one of the studs of this team, but he and Dylan Nealis weren't communicating well or something, and Reyes had a little bit of a weird game. Thankfully it leads to no goals conceded still, but very awkward first half from him. I think that whole right side of the defensive unit seemed to be all out of sorts, and also with the communication with Nealis and with Sean Nealis in the middle, something was off kilter there. I don't know. They weren't talking well.
Struber definitely seemed to be kind of having his most visceral moments when the ball was coming down that right side, just like kind of grimacing when he saw guys miss marks and stuff like that. So that lines up with what you're saying.
I think Reyes looked also like he knew he was off. Like he didn't seem to be like blaming other guys. He seemed to be just based on the way he was reacting.
Wasn't he injured? Like he was on like the injury like list or like listed as questionable against Columbus, but ended up starting.
Oh, was he?
Right? Wasn't that the case? Like he
It's
was
hard to
listed questionable
remember.
recently.
I can't remember. There's been games where there was one game in the last month where he was listed as questionable and then didn't start, but then he was thrown on for like a 10-minute sub. But I can't remember exactly which game it was.
I mean, like you remarked on this in the game, though. He looked better in the second half, which was like really good. But I'll also say like I really liked the way that Dylan Nealis was playing and the aggression that he went up with. Like he was like kind of a pure winger almost at times up that side, and like it gave us a lot of that verticality. I thought that we probably missed because he plays a lot more direct, obviously, I think, than Kyle Duncan does.
Yeah, all this like makes me just think it's a shame that Cameron Harper's injured because I feel like
he would have thrived.
He's just like he's the guy, right, to play that way and to actually.
That's a name,
right? But
Cameron Harper.
It's just like constantly on the injury list, which is just a huge, huge bummer.
I did forget about that.
Yeah,
but
and it's like he was the other right.
It'd be way more interesting, other than just having Nealis or Duncan. I agree though. I don't think Nealis. He didn't have a bad game by any means. I don't think he was an issue at all.
He should have taken that one shot in the second half, but
but.
Yeah, right. He should have. But whatever.
To tie into my overarching kvetch about everything about this season, about Struber's decisions, I guess I'm still left scratching my head at the team selection a little bit, where I do not know why we've yo-yoed between Dylan Nealis and Kyle Duncan at that position in recent weeks. Neither of their performances, he doesn't seem to be satisfied with either of them. Really, neither of them seem to be clicking in, obviously, in one way more than the other. I don't know what Dylan Nealis has done to necessarily earn that spot. And that's not coming from me, like, criticizing Dylan Nealis. I mean, I've sort of defended him a little bit this season, but more to tying back to questioning why Kyle Duncan immediately started after like flying in 3 days earlier. Like he arrived on his loan and immediately started, and it's still unclear to me like what the thinking was behind that, because evidently after a month or so we don't fully trust him. I don't know. This also ties into my main confusion about this game, being that I really wanted these last 2 games of the season to be sort of a trial run at getting this unit to gel and like figure out what the best version of the Red Bulls are, as Cork put it 2 episodes ago. And
as I put it to Struber, and he seemed confused by the premise.
Oh yeah, what did he have to say about that?
Oh, that was the one where
what do you think?
Where he and I flared off a little at the press conference.
Yeah. But
playing the same team 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, what did you just get out of elementary school or something? Like, come on, you can't. It's like, betting the same things twice in a row. And
you want professional players to be ready at all times to play.
Yeah, but I mean, on the whole, I guess the lineup looked a little bit closer to what we might roll out, I think, on Saturday, I would expect, or the Nealis and Duncan thing continues to confuse me. This is also just doubled by the fact that apparently, this is a position of particular importance in the system, and we keep on playing the system just while seemingly not being satisfied at our options there. We haven't really shown as a team much progress, I feel like, this season at really improving that part of our play on the field. And we're going into the playoffs, I feel like, with that still being a sort of open question, when I feel like we had a lot of time to work on this season. And maybe we just tried and it didn't come off. But I'm a little unsatisfied with that still being such an open question or unresolved as we wrap up our regular season here. But on a happier note, or a more optimistic note, I feel like the second week in a row pairing Frankie Amaya and Daniel Edelman looked decent. Mm-hmm. Pleased to see that Frankie Amaya still is quite a decent player. Rewind to a couple months ago, and I was saying he's a breakout player of the year. Then he couldn't find the squad. I guess
he's back.
I guess he was injured. I mean, again, it's a small thing at the moment, but it just adds up to something when Frankie Amaya, guys like Frankie or Drew or CCJ at times will like disappear from the squad without a clear explanation, and I think, oh, they're just like out of favor again, or like they're generally unfit, and then weeks later it comes out that they have an injury. Like the team is like
versus other
shooting
stuff
itself
like
in the foot there.
Versus other stuff like you were saying earlier, where Kyle Duncan comes off the plane from Belgium,
Right.
having not played in 3 months, thrown right into the team.
It just like makes me not
Before he loses his job. Yeah.
like in a sort of low-key, more passive way, it makes me not really trust the club. Like when they say someone's hurt. Like, what is a knock? I don't know. I feel like a knock right now is just Struber being mad at you. And then sometimes it's like, oh no, he actually does have a leg infection. Oh, but he's actually also had that leg infection low-key for a couple weeks, and now it's just like team is not doing themselves any favors by being so unclear about this stuff.
Excuse me, by saying this, you're slandering the good name of Sam Surgeon.
Riley Williams.
Yeah.
He's not in charge of the PR. I'm sure Dr. Riley Williams
Puts out like a very detailed report.
Sorry, I didn't put his title before his name.
Oh my
Dr.
God.
Surgeon Riley Williams.
Mr. Dr. Surgeon.
I wonder if he listens to this show.
I hope not.
I wonder if he probably, I like to think that he kind of just doesn't spend any time at all about thinking about what the Red Bulls or even soccer is. He's just like, oh cool, it's just like the chit chat he makes before doing surgery. What do you do? Oh, you play for the Red Bulls? Neat. Doesn't spend a second thinking about what that is. And he does that for all of his
So
clients.
what do you do? Like stock the fridges?
He's like, oh, you play for the Giants? Quietly thinks to himself, I mean, he's big, but he's not that big. All right, this looks like a normal leg ligament to me, but sure, all right. Anyway, but yeah, I liked Frankie Amaya and Daniel Edelman.
I will say, I
Edelman
think that's a
playing
big
together.
part of why we were winning those like aggressive interceptions in the midfield, is that those two are good at positioning and have a lot of energy behind them.
It was also a good matchup physically for them because I was saying this during the game when I came up and saw you guys at halftime, where Derek Jones was in the midfield for Charlotte. And that's a guy who's been around the league. I mean, he was with Philly for a while, if you remember. I think he was a Philly Academy guy. But guy who's been around the league for a few years, and I've watched in games over the years. Never really realized that he's like 7 feet tall.
Which is why
Really tall.
Yeah, and
which is why Gerhard made the switch to put Hassan and Dom on.
Yeah, honestly, kind of. Because I mean, he was kind of like the
was so
stable,
funny.
the most stable point in Charlotte's midfield was to get it to him, and he would basically do hold up play and shield it with his
incredible.
giant body that I never noticed before. But yeah, Maya and Edelman being kind of little guys, they were sort of able to get some leverage in a lot of
They could just get in front of him.
challenges, right?
You know, like he was above them, but they could get in front of him.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that I'm really glad that both of these guys have been getting Maya a couple games, Edelman pretty consistent now. But what happens when now Drew's back and CCJ, like, have we gotten a determination on his availability for this weekend?
Yeah, I probably won't know. It doesn't look good, honestly, because I mean, it was a thing that, when he went to Venezuela camp, they were like kind of confused about, and it doesn't sound. I mean, from Struber's hints and stuff, it doesn't sound like it's gotten better since he's gotten back. So.
Because it makes me think. I mean, in the situation that all four are healthy and available, it doesn't seem like we. What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, it is a question of what we do if one of Edelman and Amaya goes down at this point. I mean, Drew Yearwood is going to be back and probably will dress, but based on the standards of this team the last couple of years, he's not going to be anywhere close to fit. Maybe they try and inch him back with some sub minutes if there ends up being a multi-week run in the playoffs. But beyond that, I don't know that he's going to be a viable option. So
Well, Drew's
it's
not
a little
been
thin
injured
there.
this time.
because
He's been training.
He's still doing the red card suspension.
Right. I mean, but he hasn't played a game in
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're Kyle Duncan, apparently, you can't be trusted with minutes when you've been out of the loop for that long. So
Yeah. I don't know. Interesting to think about. And we did see Wiki Carmona reappear as well. And, I mean, look, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He absolutely looked like a guy who hadn't touched a ball in live minutes in a couple months. Okay. I'm going to check myself. This is a sort of small thing. It's not that important. Don't fully understand why we're using last minutes of the year, though, before the playoffs to give minutes to a guy like that, though. Think you could probably maybe spend it on... I guess, did Omir come in too?
Yeah,
I don't know. But
I think didn't they come in together?
Sirwada, I guess, is just, pissed in somebody's Fruit Loops or something. I mean, he had his little moment at the beginning of the summer, but is apparently not trusted ever since.
And then Serge was fit warming up too.
They actually both came up to the bench. It looked like they were both going to come on, but then they got told to sit down.
It is kind of insane that Tom Barlow didn't come into this game. Like,
actually, I didn't even think about it until now because people were talking about it before the game. Like, oh, he's going to be the one player to appear in every match this season.
yeah, was this the only game?
I wonder if that couldn't be tolerated, that much attention.
If he played in every game this season, he would have triggered a clause in his contract where we would have to pay for the soda in the locker room in the soda machine. Whoa, no.
He negotiated it on the plane with Dennis Hamlet.
Yeah,
one
exactly.
trip.
But I do just love the Hassan Dom move as well, because it's just like, if taking the line of thought of like, why doesn't the largest soccer player, Hassan Dom, not simply eat the other players? Yeah, that's what they were doing with what's his name, Derek Jones, and then we countered with Hassan.
The Ndom sub and putting him in midfield, that's actually one of, I've seesawed, I guess, a little bit on it, but that's one of the Struber flourishes that I kind of like and respect, is because he's done it too with like Aaron Long and Sean Nealis just going up and playing striker in like the 30th minute sometimes.
Yeah.
And like, as just like an in a vacuum kind of like weird move to catch the other team napping, I kind of respect that. And in this game, it kind of made sense. I mean, it was kind of stupid to only do it for like 5-10 minutes at the end of the game if you thought it was an issue through the whole match. But it did seem like a concerted effort to limit Charlotte's ability to play diagonally and for him to kind of eat up balls coming through the air in the middle like that. So, but again, it is sort of a thing like you're saying, Brit, with Carmona, where it's like last game before the playoffs. I mean, seems like real late in the game to be trying that stuff out.
But are we sure he's not really, really good?
Although I think it's more likely that in his mindset, the most important thing to do before the playoffs is to get rest. Probably. He's like, we got to save guys in the tank. It's a big win that we didn't have to use our best bullpen arms, Again, Gerhard Struber. Check out baseball. You might like it.
Just American sports in general.
Yeah.
Gerhard.
And I think on that point, I mean, it's interesting on the more like ideological end of like what is Red Bull soccer, what it was. I feel like that aspect of it does appeal the most to me, which is like really breaking it down more to its physical aspects of like there's a bunch of guys running on a field, like exposing that a lot of other people have begun to think of soccer as a game where like people ping the ball to each other and people neatly pass the ball, and it's a question of chaining together
plays
passes.
The tidiest ball.
Right. And when I've been most in love with Red Bull soccer and like that ideology is when it says, no, you think it's like that, but ultimately this is a game where you are hitting a ball crudely with your body into space, and we can clog and manipulate that space, and you can't assume that you can neatly pass to everyone like that. Like you are assuming that, and we're going to refuse that premise, and we're going to force it back at you a million times over. And that's, I feel like, what you could see in 2018 and 2017 a little bit. That was a little bit more exhilarating, and what we haven't really been seeing as much this year. I will say, sitting in the stands this week, maybe I was looking for it more, but I was like, okay, I feel like I see our pressing a little bit more than I have, like in previous weeks. Like our style feels a little bit more defined. Maybe I was just trying to look for it. But that said, I'm not sure it really created our goals too much.
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
I think especially last episode, I think he was even just asking you, Peaches, like, what's going on with our midfield? Like the kind of like, like the follow up to the initial press, like what's happening. And it really felt like that actually was more visible watching the game this weekend, which is a nice surprise. I don't know, but to that point,
Someone's
I don't know,
listening to 202.
I don't know if it's like now that I had talked about it last week and have been aggressively looking for it in the game, it happened more, or if that just was a difference or something that changed in the compared to the previous game.
I mean, we all got a feeling that this game, the pressing felt better than previous games, right? Like that's a common feeling.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think so. Although,
but it's like, but like the goals again were two like screamers.
Yeah, I mean, which is maybe an opportunity. We haven't actually talked about Elias, or I guess the announcer was saying Elias. Is that what or was he saying? I don't know. I can't remember. He wasn't saying Elias though, but he makes his breakthrough though, scoring his first 2 goals for the club. The first one, of course, is on the rebound from a very solid shot from, pardon me, Lewis Morgan, just kind of falling through and hitting it very well across the goal. When the goal happened, I was sitting there watching for the replay, and my assumption was like, God, the goalkeeper must have just taken forever to stand up and just didn't stand up quickly enough. But I was surprised to see he actually was standing. He was like ready and set for like a whole beat before Elias even gets to the ball. And Elias just smacks it past him.
Laser, yeah.
Yeah, well taken. But I will say, this is not really a ball taken or a goal created from pressing. Like the build up to this play is very unremarkable. It's I think Frankie just passing it to Morgan, who's a bit unmarked, and hits it from a solid 25 yards out, forces a good save, and then Elias just bundles it in with a nice hit. Not really a distinctive goal. I mean, it kind of fits into the category of goal that we've been talking about this season so far, of like Morgan and Lucchinius kind of getting goal assholes here and there. The second goal.
Second goal's in that vein, I think even more.
Yeah, I mean it's an even more striking goal from Elias.
It's like a typical Lewis Morgan goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not.
It's more. It's a little bit more of a pressing goal in that it comes off of reacting to a second ball and forcing Charlotte to do a bad clearance. But yeah, beyond that, it's
Like, he created that goal
pure
himself.
individual brilliance.
And like I was saying, like it's like he hit a good golf shot. Like he really held the finish there with his like leg all the way through, with the follow through. He
dug it out, as Sid Lambert would say.
He knew he smacked the shit out of that ball.
Is it the kind of thing where he landed on his right foot after hitting it with his right foot?
I think so.
Yeah.
Like he had like that whole like cake all the way across his body. And
he did. He landed on his right foot right after hitting with his right foot. That's good to see. I was actually convinced, even before he took the shot, I was sitting there, and when he got the ball, I said, "Oh, offside, off." But apparently he was kept on.
Yeah, Charlotte was not clearing their lines very well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. That is the kind of chance. Well, it's sort of the kind of chance that we concede off the second ball. I mean, usually we just allow someone to whip it in and head it in on goal. But, I mean, it was nice to see that come out of his locker. And I feel like even off the ball or just when not taking shots, Elias looked pretty productive in hold-up play, but also sort of just running the channels. I cannot begin to guess whether this has shown enough to keep him. I don't know. I think part of that is I don't really know what either Schneider or maybe Struber himself are actually looking for. It's kind of hard to say at this point, but certainly won't hurt his case to get those 2 goals.
He looks like he has a high ceiling, in my opinion. But I'm not a professional scout, you know?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, and I don't really have a grasp on the fee or what the sort of logic is.
The risk assessment.
Yeah, so that's sort of beyond me at the moment, but I'll just take the good things as they come for the moment. Klimala came in and had a couple good chances. Got forced to save from Charlotte. That was pretty decent. Took a shot from a really hard angle that went wide. And there was that one ball where, pardon me, Duncan squared it across, and their center back kind of crashed a little bit and just disrupted it a bit. Got pretty close. Would have been really nice to see him bag one of those. But on the whole, I felt pretty okay pretty good about how he came in and played for 30 minutes. It looks like he's fit and kind of on the ball a bit, even though he didn't convert. But I'm sure some viewers are probably tired of me saying that. But hey, could have been worse, I suppose. Were you gonna say something?
I was not, but
sorry.
yeah.
Well,
About Klimala?
yeah.
I thought his body language looked a little poor. Like he didn't feel very confident. But what can you do with like what he's been, dealt with?
Right. I mean, that's also, I don't know. I'm at a point where I'm like, was he actually hurt? What was his listed injury again?
His was odd because it was after a game where it was after the Miami game that we won at RBA like a month and a half ago, where he came out in like the 80th minute and it just seemed very like ho hum. I mean, I think we probably commented on the show like, wow, Klimala can go beyond the 60th minute or whatever. But then he didn't play for a month again, and it was explained that he had an injury from that Miami game, even though he hadn't appeared in the midweek injury report after that Miami game. So go figure.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Great example of something that is sort of like small beans in the moment, but like just doesn't
when it happens so often with so many different guys.
Yeah, it just really does not make me want to give the benefit of the doubt to the club on these things. It's like, what is going on? Just fucking tell us. You know, like who are you guys? Who do you trust to play for us in big moments? Who do you want to promote, beyond John Tolkien? Like, who do you think are the faces of this club? no one apparently except for John Tolkien.
If they can confuse us, the people who week in and week out, religiously study this team, then they can
Right.
confuse the opponents.
That's a great point. But yeah, solid win. I mean, we secured the 4th seed in the playoffs, which means we now play Cincinnati, who's the 5th seed, at home on Saturday. Sorry. The only real movement we could have had on Sunday is if City lost, or if they drew, actually, too. That would have been enough to leapfrog them into 3rd, and we would play Miami instead. And crucially, I think if we had won, if we'd been in 3rd, we would play Montreal if we won that first game instead of Philadelphia, which I have to say I would have preferred, if nothing else, because as we've said on this podcast many times, I'm fucking tired of going to Philadelphia. Extremely boring trip. Also, for what it's worth, not too optimistic about our matchup with them right now. Montreal would at least be a more fun away trip if we did it. But, also makes me more disappointed that we dropped 6 points to City. Very, very easy, gettable 6 points. Lots of occasions, as
And
the
many
listener will
points
know.
in between.
Right. It was really quite easy to have 60 points right now. And even, I mean, not impossible to imagine just being straight up second in the table if some of the home form. I mean, that's beginning to get into what if territory where you're changing quite a bit. You're like, oh, what if this team's home form improved, then it would be a pretty substantially different team, But there's just even a couple losses here or there. If we just show up better against City, boom, easy that we're in 3rd place.
But there's and there's those kind of domino effect, ripple effect, where it's if we had won that game, then I think the whole mindset thing wouldn't have maybe taken over.
Although I guess what I'm saying
Boogeyman.
is that I think that's slightly less true this year. I will concede that the home form question is a pretty deep existential thing about the squad and this manager right now. Whereas last year, it's what if we hadn't lost to New England all those times and choke that game at Philly? I have much more of a sense of a cascading effect from that. This year,
I think it all kind of fits.
I think it all kind of stems, we're getting the same attitude that we got from Struber week 1, where he was this team sucks. It's stupid for you to expect this team to win. Last week of the season, he's saying the same thing. Saying this basically oh, I lost so many starters. We don't really invest well. I should get a job somewhere else. If you're listening, please hire me. I've done so good with such a shit situation. They just paid my transfer fee to come over and starve me. Poor Gerhard Struber. So that theme, I think, that attitude seems to have snuck into the club from head to toe. So it's kind of hard to imagine what if. Other than that, you're basically imagining a different sort of team altogether at that point.
Both the home form and where you launched off from that on where getting swept in the league by your main derby rival.
Yeah.
I mean, both those compound each other to add to why this does feel not feel like it, honestly, just kind of on paper is somewhat of an underwhelming 4th place season.
Yeah. And 6th in the whole league. Wild.
This season, review, even though we do that for later, it's a very mid-season.
Yeah.
It's everything about the season has been unexciting.
It was like the Jets. I mean, I think we've touched on this a couple times over the course of the year, but it's been kind of like the Jesse Marsh 2017 season, where things were just kind of never really launched the entire season. But the difference in that year was obviously, first off, that Jesse had earned a lot more capital than Struber had with his early seasons, but also that there wasn't the same, we weren't dropping, I guess we dropped the one game home derby to City. But the home form was mostly better than the road form, obviously. And it was just the vibe was different in that there was that beginning of the year where Jesse was trying to do the full-on 4-2-2-2 experiment and acknowledged it didn't work and adjusted and got the team a little more kind of gelled as the season went on. Whereas, like you were just saying, Brit, I mean, that lingering sort of non-start to this season never went away.
Right.
You know, I mean, how much you want to attribute it to Struber's rhetoric is up to you, but I think there's also just the pure results themselves lend itself to the kind of underwhelming air to this season.
I will volunteer myself as the heat sink, as like the hater, the devoted hater of this, right? If you want to attribute any of the 202 haterade on Struber, get at me. Like, fine. Gerhard, I hate your style. I hate your quotes. I hate your leadership. It fucking sucks, dude. Like, if you want to get cranky about it, you're just proving the point. Wow, by that lot, you've just proved my point. I've just nerd logic you to death, Gerhard. But yeah, and I was actually hoping last season would be our 2017 season, where like he tried the diamond thing.
Right.
He abandoned it for, I don't know, some reason that I was giving him the benefit of the doubt. The team gelled defensively, and now it's time to cook in the next season. But I guess that's just not in the plans.
Yeah, that's the major difference. It's
because
like,
he's the first manager who ever lost a handful of players.
Yeah, but like that was the whole
mainly because they were good enough to get transferred.
I think that's the big contrast between that 2017 season and this season is like is this overarching narrative of progression of like this team getting better and like you seeing kind of like the incremental improvements and seeing where the areas of weakness were and how they're getting like filled up. And everything just seems to be throwing shit at a wall, and then like some things stick, but maybe we don't even keep the shit that sticks anymore week to week. So I don't like. It's just no like progression to the season.
And that 2017 season actually did have a purple patch. That like 1 month where we blew out a couple teams, like
just like going undefeated to,
and then we was like, all right.
And there's the Open Cup run,
and then
which we have this year, but a shorter one.
And then after the Open Cup, it kind of felt like my understanding was like Jesse had kind of packed it in, and decided that 7th seed was just as good as being like 4th or 3rd seed or whatever, which pissed me off because I really wanted to finish high in the table as high as we could. But I feel like going into that first round against Toronto that year, there still was that sense of like
it was actually against Chicago the first round where we had that good win,
right? Which I feel like that was like coming out and being like, all right, we were just sort of training with weights on, we were just playing with you guys, we're actually better. And then we have that really sloppy bad home game against Toronto, but there still was that sense in that battle that year that like, oh, we were probably not the 7th best team.
We were better than our record said that year, as opposed to this year where we feel worse than our record.
Was it 6 teams?
Yeah, it might have been 6
I think it was 7 because that was the system.
We played like the wild card against Chicago.
The 1 seed got a bye, and then 2-7, 3. No, I guess it was like it might have been 3-7 or 4-7, 5-6. I don't know. Something
it was
that.
like 4-7, 5-6.
Because it was like a 1-game playoff we played
yeah,
against Chicago, where everything else was still 2-1.
And then like the first 3 got
so
a
we
bye
were the
or something.
7 seed that year. But I'm also gonna plagiarize one of Cork's own lines about losing players, because like I mean, you have to give Struber a little bit of leeway here, because he did lose Kyle Duncan in the offseason and had to be replaced by Dylan Nealis, who is less good than Kyle Duncan, except Kyle Duncan's back and he's better than Dylan Nealis now. And Dylan Nealis is better than Kyle Duncan now. Yeah. So, it's how is he supposed to deal with these conditions?
Yeah. And
I just want to say one more thing about the Open Cup. At least the Open Cup run didn't fizzle out the same way
certainly
this one did either. So that also brought like that feeling of like miserable end to the season. Like we don't deserve.
It's also funny that we've stopped. This is less of a critique and more just like throwing up my hands in the air and being like, this is weird. We were just like gave up 5 goals to Orlando and just were shipping goals for a couple weeks of the season, and then we kind of just stopped, and doesn't seem to be a long-term threat or a long-term problem anymore. And Orlando wasn't even good. A couple of those teams we got blown out, but Colorado, obviously not that great. Just like was a phase we were going through, I guess. We're just like, you know what, fuck it. Let's give up 5 goals a game a bunch of times. Just cuz.
Year and a half into the system. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just like, yeah. I mean, let's see. I mean, let's see if we rise to the occasion on Saturday, I guess.
It's gonna be a pretty good game, actually. I think Cincy is probably the most interesting team to face right now.
I'm kind of worried.
Well, I mean, there's that. I mean, they're I think part of what's interesting is that they're kind of the biggest threat to the way Red Bulls play. I mean, they sort of play a system. I remarked on it when they were playing at RBA recently, where, I mean, it's backed up by the metrics too, that they basically play. It's like Galacticos era Real Madrid, where they just kind of throw the ball up to their big guys up top and they just cobble something together. It's not really, they don't really build up. They have their front three of Vasquez, Brenner, and Acosta, our pal Lucho Acosta.
My favorite player.
Yeah, exactly. But they are completely separate from the rest of the team. I tweeted a photo. I tweeted a photo during the game at RBA where they were literally standing. They were cherry picking up top against the back line, 30 yards away from any other player on their team. And yeah, the metrics have it that they just kind of launch balls up to them and, hope they create something. And yeah, you can't really press against that. You can't really find triggers against that. The whole point of pressing is that you want to force their offense or the other team's attack to play just sort of hopeful long balls. Cincinnati's fine with doing that because they expect that one of their forwards will create something out of nothing once they get the ball into the final third. So it'll be an interesting tactical matchup from that perspective for sure.
7-0-3 formation for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, pretty much. So
yeah, I'm not too keen on the noon kickoff either, both for my own convenience, but I think it also legitimately makes me worried that the team might be a bit sleepy coming out. Like
in the City game.
Right. And especially just when you describe Cincinnati's system like that, where they are not a system that relies on every single ball of the Rube Goldberg machine hitting the right corner and hitting the right bucket. They can just throw a ball up to the front three and score a goal every once in a while, and that's it. It's that seems like the kind of game where if we come out a little sleepy,
could wind up 2 or 3 down early.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll lose 6-1 this time.
Oh, come on. Okay, I'll try to put a stop to my own complaining then. I don't think we're cooked. I mean, what was our record against Cincinnati this year?
We lost, right?
Yeah, we lost.
Well, we beat
2
them
draws,
once,
I think.
right?
2 draws, I think.
Oh, did we draw that game? Miazga
It
scored
felt like a
first.
loss.
It felt like a loss.
Right.
Because we scored in a penalty, right?
Yeah, that's right. I
And
guess.
it was Patrick scored because there was a little chit chat in Polish. That was the whole big thing.
So we drew them 1-1 August 20th. And then we drew them 1-1 July 9th.
Well, we have a Hassan and Dom grudge match game.
Whoa.
He's going to start for sure up top.
They still seem to, Cincinnati still seems to have it out for Frankie Amaya.
They do.
Yeah.
Shitting on them on his way out, which I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If Frankie could bag a goal or two, that'd be nice.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm kind of if we win, am I going to Philly again? that's where I'm at right now because it's
wait. So they announced. I'm pretty sure it'll be on a Thursday.
Yeah, that'll
evening,
be
which is
hard,
dicey. Yeah.
Hard. Undesirable.
Yeah, I'll hopefully be able to get Friday off work, but
ideal. Because then it's and we were discussing this at the game. One of the worst parts about the Philly trip is that maybe it's just a lesson for our own planning. Is that we've several times have been oh yeah, we'll just go down on the day and maybe we'll do something in the city. And it's no, that never works. It doesn't work. We're just going to be in the parking lot in Chester and it's going to take surprisingly long. And then we're just going to be driving mostly through,
John Galt Way.
Yeah, John Galt Way in the part of New Jersey where Harold and Kumar almost get killed by the
extreme sports guys.
Yeah, and the piney guy by Chris Maloney with warts. And it's just a terrible vibe. Just so much South Jersey happening. And
maybe we should have just gone to White Castle. all of these
There,
times.
no, as the movie points out, there is no fucking White Castle in that part of, or it's hard to find the White Castle in that part of Jersey. So
That Popeyes is probably open.
the decoy fucking Popeyes. That was. God, that was such a simulation moment. That was so Truman Show. God damn. I can't believe that. That was such an upsetting trip. And then we tried to go to Cracker Barrel.
It was like an hour wait.
And we were like, oh, what a fun little lark that is. And then just like the host and the waitstaff were like clearly stressed out of their minds and just like wanted to stop
managing 50 tables by
of
themselves.
like terrible suburban children. I was like, oh my God. Like I did not feel.
They were connected to a Radisson, and it was
did
like the
not feel
Radisson
great
Hotels
about
restaurant.
just like the country at that point. I feel like we're just like not collectively having a bad moment. And that was when like the Philly guys had like burnt the Red Bull and like they thought it was own and they still beat us anyway. And I was like, nothing is going right now. Nothing is adding up. Our sacrifices to the Red Bull aren't working. So, but I mean, realistically, I know we're not actually going to be able to like probably plan a proper and away day if it's on a Thursday evening, because maybe the one
that
key
might
is
actually
that,
force us to get it.
that's true, because I was like, oh, maybe like we could finally do the Atlantic City thing or something. That might make it slightly less insane. Oh, but I just bought a ticket to a thing that Friday though. God damn it.
Would that be the weekend of the 22nd?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'd be the 20th, and I just bought a ticket to like a work thing on the 21st. Fuck. Well, I'm
Well,
sure
we know where your
we'll,
priorities lie.
yeah.
Work over Red Bulls.
We'll,
so.
we'll
right?
cross that bridge when we get there, but we
Yeah, we're getting a little ahead
might
of it,
not even
but,
have
yeah.
to make that decision.
that's okay. The brunt of the
Well, this was like to preempt, like, do I really want to win this game?
right. Most importantly, it's not to look past Cincinnati. It's just to really emphasize how terrible the prospect, the prize at the end of it is anyway. That we just I don't like playing in Chester, no matter what.
It's also annoying because they keep knocking us out of tournaments now. Like, it's like
it's
a
kind of
pattern.
their thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and
It's like, credit to them for not like harping on it so much, but it's
you do not, in
I
fact,
think-
have to hand it to
okay.
them.
Yeah, I know, but like you know, it's like this is something like if they were actually kind of vile people, I would always bring up.
The painful thing about okay, you know what? I'm going to stop myself because why are we talking
Yeah,
about
not
Philadelphia?
even-
Yeah,
Is that
no,
what you're
seriously.
saying?
Yeah,
fair
we're
enough.
really getting way ahead. I mean, not only because we need to save it for the episode if we actually have to preview Philadelphia.
This is really is Philly a real rival episode? Way ahead of its time.
We
yeah.
did.
Let's get some Cincinnati color in here. Let's do some Charles Keating jokes, some fucking
Nick Castellanos hitting home runs.
Yeah, Larry
jokes.
Flint, like
Some Jerry
Springer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. There we go.
Nicholas Sandman.
Yeah.
like-
Unfinished subway system. Yeah.
Sweet chili with cinnamon in it.
Porkopolis, I think, is its nickname.
is that Cincinnati?
I think that's one of them, or
Deal.
some sort of pork city.
Cat Williams, like
Cat Williams from Cincinnati.
there's why are we wasting our breath on
Cat
Philadelphia
Williams is
when
pimping out in
there's
Cincinnati.
when there's all these characters?
We did forget
at
to
our disposal.
to take a sigh of relief that they blew the shield, though. That was
Philly, yeah.
somewhat good. Okay, so let's answer our own question again of like what is the best form of these Red Bulls that you would want to roll out on Saturday? Maybe particularly considering Cincinnati's whole shtick of having their front three just be a separate unit against us. Does that inform whether we do 3 or 5 in the back? Does that inform how our front 4 or 5 is built? What does the best form of this Red Bulls team look like in your guys' view? Does it start with 3 center backs, or does it start with 4 at the back?
It seems like 3 center backs has been settled in as the base formation again. So I would expect that, and I would think it's the best way to leave yourself, safe against the way Cincinnati plays, and just have as many receptacles for those long balls as possible. Just having 3 center backs out there to snuff out danger from any space in any position is pretty pretty key in a matchup like this. So I would expect to see the three in the back, 3-4-3, 5-2-3, whatever you divvy it up as.
I can't imagine we'll stray too far from what we put out against Charlotte.
I would hope not. Yeah.
I think,
Although,
no, I mean at that point, I feel like this was the same case last year. We wrapped up with Nashville, and we brought basically the same lineup into the playoffs. So I wouldn't be too surprised if that's the case here as well. I
don't
guess
see any need to switch anyone out.
the only question is, who do we start up top? But other than that, I think you'd stay the same. It seems like Duncan's not in favor. I think you're just going to see both Neelis's out there, 3 in the back. And I don't think Yearwood would start at this point. I think there's Struber, even though he hasn't valued the consistency, I think I wouldn't be surprised if we just see exactly the same thing that we saw against Charlotte.
I also wouldn't be surprised, though, if CCJ is ruled to be fit, if we throw CCJ in there. I wouldn't 100% know who it would be, though, because the most obvious substitution, I think, would be for Lucchinius. Because, interesting, against Charlotte, Lewis Morgan was playing as a second forward, pretty much, right? Like, he wasn't really playing wide at all. He would drift out wide, but, he was really just playing as a second forward, in my opinion. And I think it was a little bit more effective. Lucchinius was a little bit more successful getting on the ball against Charlotte, or by which I mean receiving the ball in the first place. I don't think he had a ton of success in his combination, and I think he also was still exposed as not really being a guy in transition.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a burst. He kind of dribbles a little bit with his head down, and is a little bit more lateral. So I think that limitation will stay there. Maybe that's okay against a team that has just 6 guys parked behind the ball at all times. Maybe we'll be in less need of that sort of transition. I don't know, but I'm also okay playing with just playing the hot hand with Elias a little bit, having Elias and Morgan up top as those two.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah,
I've been saving play the hot hand, but
oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't imagine a scenario where Elias doesn't get the start after getting a brace in this last game.
Yeah, and if not, I also like having Klimala be a 30-minute super sub more than I like Barlow. For
sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Why not go with that? And then Tolkien obviously will be there, and I'd be surprised if Duncan makes a reappearance instead of Dylan Nealis after all this time as well.
Cameron Harper is going to start.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, it does seem most likely.
Zach Ryan's going to start up top.
Yep.
That's gonna be our
it's gonna be Zach
October
Ryan
surprise.
Yeah, it'll be
Hassan
Ricky
Dom
Carmona.
is the striker of the week. I agree that it's probably most likely that Drew dresses but doesn't start. It wouldn't shock me actually if CCJ dresses but is secretly not fit. And I will say that is the level of thing that would be an acceptable amount of little bit of gamesmanship and trickery. Like if Garrett wants to dress him just to make Cincinnati double or check themselves, that although I guess the week to do that might have been this week, maybe. I don't know, but I could see that happening. Also, it's like we have a bench spot
Don't give
to
him too many
burn.
ideas.
He has probably something far more complicated in mind already. This is
I was
fairly
gonna say,
simple.
I can't wait for the Twitter engagement once Steven Sirwater scores the game-winning goal in the 90th minute.
I was sort of surprised that, Serge is back, I guess. I don't know. Is Serge back, actually? Because I feel like a lot of the communication about that was that they wanted to be careful and they didn't see any reason to rush him, which, hey, fair enough. I actually get that. But then he's been on the bench. I don't know.
He's
Maybe
warming
he
up.
could be a late substitution. But that's actually maybe another good question. It's like, it's late in the game. It's 0-0 or it's 1-1. We're going the last 10 minutes of regular time, potentially going into extra time. Who, in your opinion, do you really want on the field in that period?
Caden Clark, Serge Goma, Patrick Klimala. It's not bad to have coming off the bench for that
I
kind of
would... I forgot about Caden Clark.
Yeah, I mean, who
Was he listed as unfit this week?
Yeah, he's been out the last couple
I
games.
mean, he was in street clothes, but what's his issue? Is he
back,
kaput?
supposedly.
That's not good.
20-year-old blown out his back.
Yeah.
Well, he was just carrying too hard for the twos, I guess. Or
yeah.
something.
That's not good. I would.
He did a Twitch stream where the foam pit was too shallow.
Jesus. The this is why you got to stick to streaming Geocacher. Have you ever exercised? No. This is Djibouti. We'll take that. If he were fit though, Caden Clark would be a great 105th minute sub though, or maybe 95th minute sub. I would. Part of me wants to think that I want Lewis Morgan on the field as long as possible. That said, I do feel like Morgan is one of the few guys I've actually seen get tired on the pitch. But that's partially because he's one of the few guys who's allowed to finish the game, who plays up top. But I think in going to extra time, I just want him there for set pieces and then penalties if necessary as well. So I think I want Lewis Morgan on the pitch as long as possible. I actually am more flexible with Lucchinius. I think Lucchinius might be okay to sub in. If Caden Clark is healthy and he could come in, I could be okay with that.
I agree, but like you're saying, I think Lewis Morgan's role in this team requires a lot of strain. I can't imagine him being that effective past 90 minutes if it comes to it.
Yeah, the game might be
But I mean
dead, and he could maybe if we
Just hit a screamer on a ball that the rest of the team's
Right.
late too.
It's a role for CCJ too, honestly.
That's
Just
true.
But
fucking throw him in there, and he'll
chaos
do nothing
agent,
except
yeah.
for that one moment where
Right.
he gets bags a goal.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, yeah, Caden Clark has
The
that
vet,
in
the
him.
vet
Yeah, right. You throw all those guys in there.
All of the dudes have
Yeah.
that in him.
I just realized that Sam laid that out in a way that made it clear to me, clear to the whole world, it should be, that Christian Cáceres is the Venezuelan David Platt. Duh.
Wow, yeah.
Fucking duh.
That role, I've got the chant
Sitting
ready.
right in front of me.
Venezuelan David Platt, just over and over again. Every time I walk by the frozen drink stand at RBA, now I think of Christian Cáceres Sr. guy just knows how to have a good time. But it will be interesting to see if we are going into the depths of regular time and or extra time, how we approach the Amaya Edelman pairing. Especially, let's say if Drew is really the only fit guy on, if CCJ is still not fit, and then Drew's on the bench but hasn't played a first team game in 3 or 4 weeks, does he become a legitimate option if one of our two midfielders is getting pretty tired and it's the 105th minute or something?
I don't think you've been paying attention to the spreadsheets because I think it's a pretty obvious call to me that despite what the game state is, Amaya is going to get pulled at some point for Drew Yearwood in the playoffs.
I don't know, but then also you're forgetting the premise that some players just will not play for unknown reasons because of there's a pendulum.
Something we'll find out later.
Yeah, there's the pendulum swinging underneath the church nearby Harrison that has all of the names of everyone crossed out, or everyone's name is written in a cave off the coast.
The catacombs of the Trinity Church.
I'm trying to make a reference to the 2004 television show Lost, and I'm really.
I
reaching
thought you
here.
were trying to do National Treasure.
Sorry, but anyway, I think it would be okay to have Klimala sub in and then go in and have him be there for pens. Other than that, I think I'd want all the other starters there.
Do you think Carlos Cornell is going to get the start in goal?
I think he's just about earned it.
He pipped his way to the goalkeeper of the year nomination, so maybe he gets
barely.
trusted in the playoffs.
Who is the third keeper?
Big Cooch, AJ
Marcucci's still here?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Although I
Big
think he's been
Cooch.
hurt. I think he's been hurt, and RB2 has just been playing guys off the street, but who knows? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. it
They
was
should
me,
play
actually.
Sam after his
played
showing
me.
today.
They should play
Oh,
me.
yeah, you had some good saves too today. We didn't even get to the meat of the real game.
I'm okay with that. It was one for forget personally.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I did a few sprints today, so I'm feeling pretty tired.
Man, where's your trophy? Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah. Wow.
I did so much of the pressing moments this game. I just I feel like I should be rewarded.
One of your row on Burns' spreadsheet has automatically
It's the conditional formatting.
Conditional
It just
formatting has been
turned green.
triggered. Yeah, one of your cells is light green, not dark green, light green.
I love
yeah.
that.
All right. Well, any other preferences or notes for the Cincinnati game at 12 at noon?
My preference would for it to be at 5 p.m. maybe 3
I feel like
p.m.
12 it's an unusual early time. It's usually 1.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
it's gonna be at 9 on the West Coast. Like,
I have to leave. Yeah, I'm gonna have to leave here at like 9:30 or something.
There was a baseball playoff game that started at 11 this weekend, I think. So at least we could.
They're really trying to get that F1 drop off, I think. No.
Yeah. Well, hey, I guess maybe the baseball playoffs so far have been a lesson that, like, yeah, a lot of the weird, ugly teams like the Phillies are the ones who somehow win. So maybe even though the Red Bulls have been sort of weird and ugly, maybe that's what the key is. Is to really just shithouse your way through.
That is kind of how you win a knockout tournament, I suppose. But it's really frustrating to think that, like you would stoop down to kind of like such unattractive football to do something.
I would say that also there is the fact to just go even more ahead of ourselves, even further past Philly, is that we would host almost every team other than like the top 2 in the Western Conference if we got to the final. Like only 2 of those teams have more points than us. So,
LA and
Austin. So
those are both goable cities.
yeah.
We fucked up Austin. We didn't fuck them up, but we.
Oh, I just meant in terms like I might fly out to that kind of game.
Oh.
Depends when it is.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't even feel that bad about jinxing ourselves or anything. I feel
Right.
like we're
No,
playing with
fuck
house
that.
money, like, right?
Yeah.
Like we said last week, it's not like it's not 2018. It's not like our hopes are really like pinned on this season. If we lose on Saturday, I'm not going to be like, oh, we cursed it. So, you know what? Maybe we can have some fun with these hypotheticals. Fuck it. Any other thoughts? Should we leave all jinxes to next week? Any prognoses? All right. Till then.
It's Alex!
I realized why your that showing of Akira last night was sold out.
It's because there's a bunch of weebs?
Yeah, it's near Comic Con.
Well, there's gonna be at least 100
Is it Comic
weebs.
Con?
It's near Comic Con like this weekend, but like
there were like people who for sure went.
Oh, yeah,
And then
I
I
saw
saw
people in the
World Trade
street
Center, and I was
yesterday.
like, what's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, I cosplayed as a Red Bulls fan.
I thought it might be a thing where people are.
Fucking nerd.
I thought it might be a thing where people are already having Halloween parties because apparently it's a thing. Like on September 1st this year, people were already like online and like in stores and stuff. Were like, it's Halloween time, like
Damn.
time to do your spooky names. And it's just like it wouldn't surprise me if people are already having costume parties and shit like
I mean,
3 weeks out.
I could tell it's October because they had the farmers market and they had the little pumpkins out, and I was like, yeah,
I mean, that's acceptable, right?
Right.
yeah.
The pumpkins
There's
are
like a
mostly
season for it,
before,
farming wise.
Exactly.
Like you kind of have to.
I was gonna buy one, make a soup or something,
Pumpkin itself is sort of mid, but I mean, I guess it's fine. It's a nice little decoration, though. I did see somebody like in a costume on the subway the other day, and it was Big Curtis Sliwa. I saw a guardian angel in the flesh on Saturday. It's always like a rare sighting.
The only guardian angel I've ever seen in person is Curtis Sliwa.
Really?
So
I mean, yeah, actually that's true. I've seen him after a Red Bulls game too.